Hi, it's Kathy from Raven Vintage. This is part 3 of the unintentional scrap series. I didn't mean this to be a series, but it just is working out to be 3 videos worth. In part 1, I did an initial sort. In part 2, I did a secondary sort, and this is part 3. I'm not going to show you how I sorted. I'm just going to tell you about it so that these videos aren't so boring, but the information's good. So these were 2 of my folders I made just by folding a piece of paper in half to keep my, these were smalls, to keep them separate. So, oops, you can see the difference. Maybe you can't. This one's a little thicker than this guy. This one's thicker because I went through and did a third sort, while I just grabbed out one pouch at a time and did a sort. I did this one, I did this one, and I did the third one, because you know there's 3 of each, right? You just put those back, and I'll show you what I pulled out of those 3. I pulled out items that were actually ready to go in journals, so what I would call a technically ephemera, and I put it in one of my little ephemera bins I picked up thrifting. I'm sure I only gave a couple bucks for it, 5 at the most. So it's just a compartmentalized little mail sorter. So the things I pulled out of on the third sort were items that were, it's kind of hard, maybe I can stand it up. So there were some tags throughout. There was a little notepad. There were some library cards, envelopes. There were, you may have noticed this, tickets. There were some index card dividers. And then just some oddball ephemera that had been cut. So that it wasn't technically scraps. It was just ephemera that I had cut but not used in a project. So they ended up in the scrap bin, which they shouldn't have. There are some postcards, index cards. So all of that I've pulled out if it's ready to go in a journal. And then the next step I did was I pulled some of the, what I would call end cuts, and I made a template for a tag, and then I started cutting a bunch of tags. Now these are wonderful, these long skinny ones, because you can flip the back up and make a pocket on the back. So that's great to have handy. I'm very envious when I see folks that have a whole box of tags made up. That would be a goal for me one day. And then I had a bunch of vintage pieces that were just randomly, for some reason, thrown in the scrap bin. So that was the third sort. So that's the end of that. And I won't sort it further. But now that I've done that sorting, we're going to make a few projects, and I'm going to show you another idea. A couple of people have mentioned that they use their scraps to make die cuts. I don't have any die cuts. One gal mentioned punches. So that's what I did today. We're going to make one of these in just a moment, so stick with me on that. But by taking your leftover or your scraps, you can make a bunch of ephemera, stock up your junk journal supplies by using your punches. And then if you do that with like a piece of paper like this, it can be coordinated so that when you do a junk journal spread, you have things that match, like the tabs and the tags and the postage stamps and the reinforcements that you use on tags. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of punches that I used today. So I had this monster. It's for doing tags. So it makes, I think the size is on the front there. Ooh. Sorry if that's loud. Was I caught on something? 3 and 7/30. What is that? 3 and 7/32 of an inch? What? What? Is that a thing? Whatever. Here. Can you see that? That's what the size is. So that was not a good example. I did it on a crease, but that makes those little tags. And then another great thing to do is make tabs. So that's this guy. Now this is not a whale tail. This is just, it just makes one side of a tab. So if you're using double-sided paper, then you have, if you're using double-sided paper, then you have double-sided tabs, done. But if you have single-sided paper, you can just glue them together. So, which I do often. So what I do is I glue this one on the side of the page, and then I come and glue this one on the other side of the page and get them lined up, and then you've got a page tab. So those are handy to make. Another thing I did was I did a bunch of circles. So this pattern in particular, these kind of look like medallions. I just took my circle punch and lined it up around that design, so you can see where this design is here, and then I just made them look like medallions. Now that stuff is two-sided. This also happened to be a really good color for your reinforcements. So let me show you a trick about reinforcements. So if you have a regular hole punch, we call this Jeff, and if you have this guy who is a 1/2 inch punch, I believe, I'll double check, let's measure. I'm gonna call that, I think that's a 1/2 inch punch, pretty sure. But this is what I want to share with you, is it's a lot easier to punch your holes first and then take your circle punch and you can center it around the hole. So I'll show you what I mean. Maybe that's too close to the edge. Once you figure out where is a good spot, just make a bunch. And then take your circle punch and open up your cover so you can, it's kind of hard for me to see without getting my noggin in there, but you can center your, that wasn't a good one. I need it to be under me, just a second. I just don't want to stick my head in there. Better? That's better. So you can center it to make your reinforcements for your tags. Okay, so punch first, hole punch first, then circle punch to make your reinforcements. This is kind of in the way, that's probably not helping. That one's pretty close to the edge, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's a great little punch to have, and that's a great little you could sit here and do a whole bunch of these. And then the medallions, oh, and then some fun scissors. So if you have these fun kind of scissors, I have 3 different brands here, so I'm sure I've thrifted these. Look at the handles are all different. I also got some from a friend, but anyway, so there's the edge that looks like your postage stamp. So you could make up a bunch of postage stamp, let's call them backers. Oops, I'm missing an edge. And then if you had some sort of little picture to go in front of that, to make yourself a postage stamp, like a little head or portrait of somebody. So these are great to make up a bunch of these ahead of time. You can do them different sizes. So that's a great one, is the postage stamp scissors, for lack of a better term. This one is a scalloped edge. So that's pretty to do for, you could do page edges. You could do what I've done here, just like a pocket with that, not straight, but little scalloped edge. You can see that. So that's another great pair of scissors to use with your scraps. And then I have this one, it's actually has a name on it. It says antique. So it just has like that decal edge. It's by Creative Memories. So let's just make one of those. So you could make up a bunch of cards. The other thing you can do is just get, oh, not straight at all, Kathy. Sorry, it's so loud. There. But I just want to show you that decal edge with those scissors. So you could make up a bunch of little cards like that. And of course you can take your strips and you can just make a bunch of little pre-made pockets. So you can just fold that paper together, glue your 2 sides, put a thumb notch in the top, and you can have a bunch of floating pockets or wallet pockets ready to go. Okay, so they can go in your book this way or this way. You could also make that a flip out. So that's another good thing to make, is a bunch of little pockets. So I've made a mess here, but you can see all the goodies that you can make. And what I would do is grab some envelopes or make some envelopes and then put all my tabs in one and all of my postage stamp stuff in another, etc., your little tags. And then in your ephemera folder you could put those envelopes and have them labeled, and perhaps they could just stand up in the back or something, so you could grab a bunch and then sort through that envelope quickly to get the ones you want. Make sense? So great ideas, little scrap buster projects here. So anyways, I'm just going to move all of this aside and I'll clean it up later. Okay, and of course I had out my corner rounder and then this kind of scalloped corner rounder so you could make some cards up ahead of time. So those are handy. And we get those punches out of the road. That guy. So here's another thing you can do is make just a little journal. Okay, so that's another idea. And then one more idea, this is a good way to use your strips. So these are little quilt boards. So I had made this one before and showed it in a video that when I was doing my scraps, because this was actually in my scrap bin and it reminded me, oh yes, that's a great thing to do with strips. So I made this one this morning and I'm going to show you how to make one right now. And one, maybe you already know how to do this, but if you don't, this is really a simple craft. And once you know how to do it, you probably make a bunch, because these, if you took this, you could cut that into a bunch of journal cards. Tags would be lovely, pockets, or you could score this and fold that and make that a journal cover. So I just backed it with some light cardstock that was also in the scrap bin. This one's just on craft paper. So there's lots of uses for these little boards. Great thing to do to use up your scraps. So I have picked some strips. I kind of coordinated. I picked the colors that were kind of matching. And then they're all about an inch wide. And I just had to cut that off where the hole is from the paper pad. So I have some strips. They're, like I said, all about an inch wide. I have a piece of scrap that will be the back. So it's just craft light cardstock. A piece of scrap paper from my bin. And I actually only need one of these for the square for the middle, so I'm not sure which one I'll use, but we'll get to that in a second. So first of all, to make your square, so simple. A square has 4 equal sides. So if you take your shortest side here, and then you just move it, let me go this way because I'm going to ink the other side first for you. And just keep your point as pointy as possible down at the bottom here in my end frame, down here. And fold that up along the edge. You can measure and cut this too if you want, but I'm just going to show you how to make a square. So it doesn't matter what size of paper you start with, as long as your 4 sides are all equal, you're going to relatively have a square. Now when all is said and done, you can trim the edges up to make it perfectly square if you want, or if your paper pages, I'll talk about that in a second, I'll show you. But for now, let's just cut this. And like I said, it's probably not going to be perfectly square, but close to it. Okay. So this is a big one. I might want to go a little smaller, which we can do in a minute. But so we have your initial fold in half. Now we're going to fold the other corner to corner. What we're looking to do here is make some seams that we can follow. Let me just grab my bone folder. Okay, so now we have an X. The next thing we're going to do, instead of corner to corner, we're going to fold side to side. So we're going to fold it in half this way. And we're going to burnish that crease down. And then we're going to fold it in half the opposite way. This way. Okay. So I'm just going to ink those quickly so you can see better in the video what I'm talking about for the next step. You don't have to ink this. This is all going to get covered up. So this is just for the purpose of the video only. So that is just, like I said, just so that you can see my creases, so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so you want something that's also square for the center. So I think a 2-inch square is probably a good size. So I think I'll do that one. And I'm going to get this out because this does need to be square, because if it's not square in the middle, then it's throws the whole thing off. Just did that quickly, but you can pick whatever you want for the center. It doesn't have to be an image, it can just be pattern paper, it doesn't matter. But let's just double check. So these are 1 inch each, so that's 2-inch square. Okay, now you can ink everything if you want, but I'm not going to for the video. But basically I'm going to use a glue stick for this project too. Oops. Okay, so what you want to do is take your little square and you want to turn it like a diamond, and you're going to match each point of your diamond to the center creases. So then you'll know you're in the middle. So just slide around. So that point's on there. Come down a bit. This point's there. Now I'm twisted, which means I need to come down a little bit. There. When you're pretty satisfied with your points touching each of the center, I'm not talking about the diagonal ones, I'm talking about the center creases, then and match up your corners of your, what we're going to call diamond now. That's how we start. Okay. All right. And then you just start with your strips. So I will show you the strips you start out with at the beginning beside your square. So this one, this one, this one, this one, those will be the longest pieces. And then when we go to the next round, the pieces get shorter, shorter, shorter as we go out to the corners. So for your first piece, to make sure you have enough, if you want it to all be the same. See, this is 2, 3, 4. All around the square is exactly the same. This one is not. I didn't have enough. I had 1, 2, 3, ran out, and then I ended up having a third one. So it doesn't quite look as symmetrical as this, but if you don't care, who cares? So what do I have that's enough? I think this, I have 3 of these. So it should be more than enough. Let's do 3. Yeah, there's 3 of these. And then next up I have, oh, these are double-sided. I also have 3 of these. Okay, so what looks nice against, I kind of like the contrast of the dark. Oh, I like the light too. I'm going to do this. Okay, so what you're going to start with, your very first strip. So come to this corner, let's just start here. You're going from one edge of your diamond to the outside of your paper. Okay, do not do this. Do not do that. You need to start at one side. I don't care if you start on this side and go up, or what I just showed you, it doesn't matter, but the bottom of your strip is going to line up with one of the edges of your diamond. Okay, so basically we just start gluing down the strips. I'll show you the first round and then the second round, and then I will zoom through. Okay, and I do need scissors. And then just trim that off. Okay, now let's make sure this is long enough to reach from here to here. Now we're going to go all the way around the square. A glue stick is a great choice for this project. So we're butting up against the edge of this one and the diamond, or the square, whatever you want to call it. And we can cut that edge off. Okay. Now, this looks a little choppy. We want to go, it's up to you if you want to make sure that your words are the right direction. I'm going the opposite of this one. It doesn't matter to me, so it's up to you. And then once we're done all of this and we trim it up to the size we want, then we can add something sturdy on the back, which I've got, that's why I had that craft paper out. So this first one is the most important one. You want to get it lined up as best as you can. So everything else should fall into place. Okay, is this last piece long enough? Yes, it is. So that ended up being two strips from a 12-inch scrapbook paper. 2 full strips, basically. So I didn't need 3 after all. And what does my square measure? I think it's, let's see what my, oh, there's a divot in there. Darn it. Oh, well. Oh, you know what? I have time. I have time. I have time. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that and do this one. Let me just see. Oh, it's going to be, it's 8.5 by 8.5. Right. Because I started with an 8.5 by 11. Well, this, my paper trimmer, it's a little rough. I'm just going to trim those off. Try again. Try again, Kathy. Oops. Missed the end. There we go. A little wrinkly. Okay, so trim that off. Okay, and I'm going to get started on round 2, and then I'm going to just speed up the video to get through to the end to show you. So then you just pick your next strip, your next color, and just keep going. Lay it down, Kathy. Okay. I know even watching other people's videos like this can be really loud, like when you're flicking off the end down onto your, I know, I'm just really sensitive to noise, so. But when I'm sitting here talking, I'm not paying attention, and I'm the one making the noise, not listening to you make noise, so I tend to forget. So I do apologize. I have something called hyperacusis, so it's, I'm extremely sensitive to noises. Certain sounds, certain pitches, certain tones. I'll tell you about that someday. Can be quite debilitating for some people. I don't have it as near as bad as others do. But it definitely all right, here. Okay, I'm going to, you get the idea. We're going to just keep going around and around. And then I'm going to speed up the camera now, and I'll join you again once I have all the pieces on. Now, what happened is, you see my corner here? I didn't quite make it to the corner on one side, so my page is a little lopsided. So I'm just going to trim the entire thing, and before I glue it to my backing. So now I have nice clean edges. And actually, grab my back, this out of the way, and I'm just going to glue the back of this to this. And then we're done. Isn't that a cute project? Great way to use up your strips. Another thing I saw for strips was when I was part of the Basic Pages collaboration with Paper Terrorists. One of the collaborators was Thrifty Day, and she used strips to make frames around some vintage images from children's books. Adorable. So adorable. So basically, she took her strips and she had, say this was the image, she just made a frame like this out of her leftover strips. Mind you, I think they were the same width, like that. And then she cut that as a square. This was a vintage children, like all different sizes. And then I think she stapled the corners, which was super cute, but you get the idea. So she made frames out of her strips. I thought that was genius. Another great scrap buster. Okay, so I glued that down. Let me just... And then I'll trim that up, and you've got a beautiful quilt board, master board. So I've got a little bit of a lift here. I don't know if I can fix that. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could ink your edges of your paper, but for a quick job, that's really pretty. I like that. So like I said, you could use those as master boards. You could cut out tags, you could do pockets, you could do little journal covers, you could score it on the other side. You could just cut this into 4 and make 4 beautiful journaling cards. Lots of ideas with this, but wouldn't it be nice to have a collection of these ready, handy to go? These are beautiful. I really like those. Yeah. So there you have it. Another project to use up our scraps. So thank you. I think that's it for this series. I don't think there's much more I can tell you about how I'm going to sort my scraps. But again, once again, I invite you to tell me in the comments ways you use your scraps. And I think we've all kind of covered, look at the video 1 and 2 about sorting and storing and containers and that sort of thing. But yeah, let's talk about projects that you do using your scraps in the comments in this video. So thanks again for joining me. I will see you in the next video. Bye.